Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining our live event about Don't Miss the Microsoft Teams Rooms Train, which is maybe a little bit of a strange title for this webinar, but we actually see that the Microsoft Teams Rooms is running so fast and we got so much requirements right now for establish a really nice meeting solution in the meeting room, since a lot of people is now returning to the offices. So depending on which country you are in, of course, it will be different. I'm based in Denmark, and we see now that it's opening up. So right now, for instance, in the Tech Data office in Copenhagen, we are allowed to be around 50%. A lot of us is still working from home, so it's not that we need to be in the office. We are still able to be at our home office like I am right now. But there is a lot of people in the meeting room as well, so we need to find out a way that we can work together. So that is some of the things that we are going to discuss today. My name is Lars, and I've been working in Tech Data for the past 3 years. Recently, I moved into a Nordic role, so now I'm covering Microsoft Teams Rooms from a Nordic perspective, helping all my colleagues in the other Nordic countries. So this is how we work. We have local sales experts, and then we have a Nordic team that support them, depending on which kind of area that it is. And I'm only focused on Microsoft Teams. Today, I'm also joined by Robert Karlsson, who is a really great guy to have on the call, because he's always so calm, and that makes me confident. So I'm really glad that Robert was able to join. And if you look at our job titles, I'm not sure. Normally, I would say that if you have a long job title, then it's because you don't have the salary. So they just give us a really, really long job title. So in the daily business, I'm just calling myself a Nordic Black Belt, which is taken out of the Microsoft job title with the global black belts. So it's a kind of an area in between the sales and the really technical guys. So that's how I see my role, to be a little bit more of the technical guy, but not really deep into all the IT technology. If you look at Microsoft Teams and the daily active users in Microsoft Teams, it has been a crazy increasement ever since COVID-19. So of course, COVID-19 have helped a lot in that increasement, but we definitely also see increasements in other collaboration platforms, which means that we will be able to, we don't need only to sit and talk with each other and have the video feed on and the presentation, even though that is also very important, but actually being able to work together on documents and on whiteboards and stuff like that. That is some of the things that we see right now is a really not only nice to have, but actually need to have right now. So the increase of Microsoft Teams is probably also helped a little bit about that Skype for Business Online is being shut down this month. So actually, I'm really happy to say that Tech Data actually shut down the Skype for Business. So we are in Teams only right now, which helped me a lot, because then I will actually get all my information in Microsoft Teams instead of external popping up in Skype for Business as well. So that's a bit of a help. We will still see Skype for Business on premise. And the good thing about the Teams rooms that we're going to talk about today is that they still support Skype for Business if you are not having the full transition to Microsoft Teams yet. But looking at the whole perspective of Microsoft Teams, we see a huge opportunity to actually go into the meeting rooms and equip the meeting rooms with nice solution that would actually support being able to work in this hybrid environment. So that's where we see a huge potential and a huge demand for Microsoft Teams rooms, being able to walk into a meeting room and then being able to push a single button and then join this meeting room. So one of the things that we're going to talk about today, and I asked Robert to take the start of that conversation about how and what is the difference between using a Microsoft Teams rooms compared to bring your own device. But before I hand it over to Robert, I would like to encourage you to put your questions in the Q&A. And if you would like to try it, we also added a possibility to actually have the transcription. So I've added the transcription, and sorry, now my dog is barking because somebody joining. So you actually have the ability to transcribe everything in the meeting room and then being able to have this transcription. So I'll hand it over to Robert, and then I go and open the door. Thanks, Robert. Over to you.
Thank you, Lars, and I think that also displays the fantastic opportunities and also some of the drawbacks of being in the home office environment, of course. So thank you for having me today. I will just upload my slide deck here. Just give me a second. I think I have to share my screen instead. I didn't really have that. Okay, let's do it like this. So now we are on. Thank you for having me again. And as you said, Lars, I'm having the long title of being Partner Technical Specialist for EMEA, and I'm covering our partners and vendors within the Teams Rooms device business. And that means that I work a lot with partners like Poly, Logitech, Crestron, HP, Dell, Lenovo, Yealink, these ones that are really driving the opportunity in the meeting room setting for us. And it's very interesting right now because the pandemic and everything around it have changed really the way we work. And I just wanted to bring a few percentages to frame where we are at today. And I think it's important to understand that this had fundamentally changed our behavior, our interest of where to work, and also on how to work. So when we ask our customers, I think we have asked customers in about 30 countries, and we have reached about 30,000 people with this survey. 73% of the people say that they want to continue to have a flexible and remote options working style. 73%. And the same people also say, like 67% of it, say that they also want to have more in-person meetings and interactions. And I mean, that is a bit like contra in that sense that you want to be flexible, but you also want to be having meetings where you can see and interact and have a good experience of this. So I think that is the paradox that we see. And when entering the pandemic 1.5 years ago, we had solutions, we were a lot of in meetings, in meeting rooms, and we were used to do that. During the pandemic, we have changed the way to have meetings from home a lot, but having that in a good way, seeing each other and meeting each other. And now when we are having a hope of being or getting back to something that is a new normal, we want to have the flexibility, of course, but we want also to have more interactions and have a better understanding of what you're saying, how you're reacting, what's the intent of what you're saying and such. So I think this is what we have to cater for. And our CIO Satya says that everything becomes more complex, not less complex in a hybrid world, because you have to take care for and you have to cater for so many different needs. And I think that is also what we're seeing for the room settings. We have to understand how the room could be easy to use, how it could be something that is very simple for the people entering the room, but still also something that will give more value for both the people in the room and the people that continues to stay in other settings. So I think that is things that we really need to find the best way about. and to work with in that sense. Also, I would like to use some of the figures that we have seen in these studies, and I saw that, Lars, that you used a study from Frost and Sullivan, and I think it's the same that we are using. So when we talk to our partners and our customers, one of the top priorities for them is to bring video to meeting rooms and have video for meetings in the post-COVID world. We see when we talk to people and listen to the different studies that there's a growth rate about 5 times from 2019 to 2025 of the amount of meeting rooms that needs to be enabled. And of the rooms that we haven't had enabled since before, almost 70% of them have only USB solutions, where you bring your PC into the room, you bring your meeting to the room, and not having that room as a resource, having that room ready to go when you enter it with your meeting and all your settings. So the potential here is fantastic. The growth rate will be fantastic. And given the fact that we also seen that Teams have made a fantastic journey the last year, meaning that we have an install base of 145 million daily active users. Our customers is out there. They want to have our help to bring this also to live, to have a good experience, no matter where their employees, partners, or customers are on a day-to-day basis. So Teams have become the platform for collaboration and for communication, which is now a standard for the customers to use. And moving on then to why I think and what we think is the important thing of having the best experience is when we are in a hybrid setting. If it's a hybrid meeting, it's a hybrid work style, it's the hybrid office. You can name that for different reasons. We have divided into a few different ways of communicating a meeting. And I think the meet and co-create is the most important and interesting thing moving forward. Because then we can have the setting of having people that are present in a room and also present on different clients, having the same interactions, using whiteboarding, using apps, using different work styles to be able to feel included and to be able to share their knowledge and their voice in the meeting. So meet and co-create, I think, is the work style that we really have to think about and to support in a good way when we are thinking on how to enable our meeting rooms. The meet and present meeting, that's the meeting that we've had for a long time, where I today present to you what is our view of things and hopefully perhaps in this meeting through a Q&A, but in smaller meetings also through having vocal questions. That is how we also get the interactions. But one thing that we've changed is, for instance, to have more people visible, because if we go back over a year, you can only see 4 people in that meeting room. Because that was not perhaps more than that was needed for, because most of the people sat in different meeting rooms. So there are people sitting in around tables and not that much or that many people sitting on different clients. And I think also one of the new ones is the meet and broadcast. And that is actually what we're doing here. We are together in different room settings, different environments, broadcasting to you as viewers, and sharing our vision, sharing our thinking around things. But we need to have solutions that also gives the interaction and the insights for us doing this, so that we can be well prepared, we can listen to what your thoughts and questions are, and then have a good way to handle them and to work with you. So these are the things that we consider when we talk about room settings. And not deep diving, but just having this as a framework. Teams rooms should give you as a user, you as a customer, and you as a partner delivering this to your customers, the feeling of being inclusive. It's something that is easy to use. You don't have to bring anything to the room. You just have to book the room before, or you use an unbooked room and then set up your meeting. But if you have booked it before, you just enter the meeting room. You have a console on the table, or you have a touch-enabled screen, which means that you can use controls on that screen. You press join, and it takes you like 3 to 5 seconds, and then you're up and running. So it should be easy to use for all. It should be the same experience, no matter technology. So we have today 2 different flavors of Teams rooms. We have them based on Windows and we have them based on Android. And it should give the end user the same type of experience, which means that I have the console or I use a touchscreen. If it's an Android-based solution, I can use that option as well. But it's the same look and feel. I understand intuitively that it's the join button. It's placed in the same way. It's easy to use. It's easy to invite new participants. It's easy to share content. So I think that is one important thing, that we bring the same consistent experience. And then we have to cater for the flexible need of bringing collaboration, bringing whiteboarding, bringing apps and such into these settings, so that if I, for instance, are in a meeting room and I get that feeling of what I would like to whiteboard, even if it's an analog whiteboard and I go to another wall, I can have a camera facing that whiteboard and using that camera to draw in that content and have that displayed in the meeting in a very good way. So no matter what technology, we should build it as an experience that is very simple for the end user to use. And from an IT perspective, this is something also that we give controls for. We get the IT management, no matter if it's within the company or if it's a partner-driven solution, the possibility to manage, to update, and to also get insights from these devices. So it's something that we work on in a consistent manner and that we really cater so that it's something that just works for the end customer and the end user going into the room. So coming back to why I think it's so much more experience to have a Teams room than to have just a USB solution. I think if we look at it this way, it's bring yourself into the meeting room. You don't have to bring anything more. Of course, if you would like to share things, you can share it from your mobile. You can share it from your PC, but you don't have to bring anything if you don't need to or want to. It's the simple use of having the same look and feel, no matter if it's a PC client, a mobile client, or a room client. We're having the same consistent feeling. And we're also bringing new features like one touch join with voice, not one touch join, that feels a bit odd. A single join that we also can use like Cortana to say, join my meeting, or Cortana, please add Anders to this meeting. And you can also bring your own device into the room and then use it to tailor and work with the console on the table. And when I talk to Cortana, my device on my side here woke up and also started to join the meeting. Sorry for that. I don't think that you were aware of it. It's inclusive. So we have connected everything. We have connected it to the compute part that is hidden somewhere in the room. And I, as an end user, don't see it. I just start the meeting, the camera lights up, the screen starts, the voice, my voice will be picked up by the microphone that is tailored for the room setting, how it works, what size it is, and you have a good set of speakers. This is already connected. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to mix and match or update anything. It's just there. And there are solutions for all types of rooms. So you can build everything from the smallest huddle room to the largest auditorium with Teams room settings, because you can tailor it for any need that you have. And if you are in a setting where you still have meetings on other platforms, you can still use your Teams Rooms device and connect to a Cisco WebEx meeting or to a Zoom meeting, because we have support for that in our platform. So we don't have to bring your own device and connect your PC client and do a web join from that one, because you can join it from a Teams Rooms device instead. And as I said before, this is something that we build from an IT perspective, so you can be sure that we tailor the experience from whatever settings that you have. We will make sure that it's updated through the nightly reboots that we do at 2:30 every night. So every time you go into that room in the morning, it has done a reboot. And if there is a need for pushing out any device updates, we will do that for you. And of course, if you like to have it fully managed, there's also solutions for that. So the Teams room setting is a simple, easy product that just works, and from an end user perspective, just go into that room. Of course, if you then bring it to a USB comparison, then you as a admin or as a company, you have to take care of the devices singly, not seeing them in one software solution because it's single devices. When you enter that room with your PC and connects to the cables, there might be that your PC is not updated or you have an old software on it. So then you perhaps need to start doing updates before you're even available to start the meeting. And it's your meeting, it's your personal client that you bring to the meeting room, which means that if you are several people in that meeting room, they will actually have your meeting and they might see your settings or your pop-ups coming to that because it's your PC just being displayed on a larger screen and with other speakers and mics. So it's very much up to the end user to make sure that you have a good experience. And you might also need to have more time to be able to start that meeting because you have to connect, you have to update, and you don't really know in what state the person before you left that meeting room, if you have the cable and such. So there's a lot of things. I think that is what I would like to bring to this meeting, just giving you the headlights or highlights of what is a Teams room, how it works, and also why we think it's very important that we bring the Teams room experience to your meeting rooms, no matter size, because it will bring ease of use and it will be a better experience for your end users. And with that, Lars, I will handle it back to you.
Thanks a lot, Robert. I'm glad that you also talked about this thing about the experience of being in the meeting room, depending on if it's a Teams rooms and a bring your own device, because I mean, we live off getting our customers a good experience, and that is what we definitely need to think about. We don't need to think about make it as, I mean, not as cheap as possible. Of course, a lot of people have some kind of limit or frame of the money that they could put into a meeting room, but we need to encourage people to actually talk about what is the best meeting experience in this room. And it's not a one size fits all because there's so many different needs that you talk about. There's this meeting and present, but there are also the option of being able to actually collaborate each other or even just share a whiteboard. And the option that I'm also going to talk about a little bit further of being actually able to work with each other on a whiteboard, I think makes a huge difference. Another thing that I see, and I'm trying to find my presentation at the same time, another thing that I really see is that being able to include all the people that is actually in the meeting room, because right now we tend to use the meeting as we did before, simply by joining a meeting and sit and present. But the thing is, when I'm working on another location, we need to think about how can we actually include everybody in this meeting. So we're going to look at that at some point on some of the next couple of slides. So this presentation is actually, or these slides I'm going to show you, is a part of a huge presentation that we created at Tech Data Maverick, trying to explain about Microsoft Teams and how you use it in the meeting room. So kind of the whole ecosystem using Microsoft Teams. It's a 80 slides presentation, so I'm not going to share everything with you in this live event, but I will be able to share the presentation afterwards, so you can go and have a deeper look at it, but also use this presentation to kind of tell to your customers. We build it up with two different personas, so we kind of look at it from two different perspectives, one from the user perspective and one from the IT perspective. The things that I'm going to focus on today is more about the use case scenarios. So how do we walk into a meeting room? What is actually what we meet in the meeting room? One of the things that we recently added to our portfolio is also the Teams panels. So actually being able to walk in the meeting room or even just in the meeting area and then being able to see which meeting rooms are actually available. So That's one of the things that we experience right now, that people are still sitting from home, but they tend to forget to unbook the meeting rooms. So there are some resources not being used, but being booked. And before, we always said to the people that you should just forward the invite to the meeting room, and then you would be able to hit the join button, and then everything will be starting up. But if you walk into a meeting room right now where the meeting room is already booked in the calendar, then it would not be possible to forward the invite, because normally we don't want to have 2 meetings in the meeting room at the same time. So how can we actually use the Microsoft Teams rooms, being sure that we get this great audio and video from the meeting room and not only on your PC? You can use the proximity join. So taking up your mobile phone and look at your meeting, log into the Teams application, and then you would actually be able to use proximity join. So via a Bluetooth beaconing, which is enabled in the Microsoft Teams rooms, then you would be able to push your own meeting to the meeting room, which means that in this pre-join screen that we have here, it will actually recommend you to use the room audio instead, which will mean that you push the meeting from your PC to the Teams rooms instead, and then being able to share your presentation from your PC. So it's a great feature that have been there for quite a while, but it's a great feature, especially right now, because people tend to forget to unbook the meeting rooms when they sit from home. So a great option to do that. And this one is actually one of my things that I really try to focus on when I talk with our partners and end customers, is how can we actually include the people that is sitting remotely? Because before COVID-19, it tended to be that there were most of the people in the meeting room, and then maybe 1 or 2 people sitting remotely. But right now it's a total different pictures. There might be a few in the meeting rooms and maybe the same amount of people sitting from home. But when you normally are in a meeting room, people used to work the same way. So they could go back and take up the pen and walk up to the whiteboard and start inking. But when you do that, I mean, then you would be totally disconnected from what is being written on the whiteboard. Some people is trying to move the camera over there, and with all the reflections, they tend to get a picture of what's been written on the whiteboard, but then you lose the body language, being able to see those who are actually collaborating with. So here at home, I have actually connected a content camera. So the content camera can be connected to the Microsoft Teams rooms, which means that I'm now able to grab everything which is on the whiteboard. And as you see, if I put my hand in front of it, you can actually still being able to see everything, because Microsoft AI will then be able to actually enhance everything that's been written on the whiteboard. So if I walk up to the whiteboard right now, I should take a blue pen since it's blue, and then I could start something and say, this is normally, if we talk about how we communicate with each other, then 55% is part of the body language. So if you don't have the video feed turned on during a video call, then it would probably being a bit more difficult really to understand the people that we work with. So one story that I have from my own life, when I worked with video conference back in the days, and I started in a company working together with one guy sitting in another country, and we had these weekly meetings, but we never actually saw each other. And suddenly we met like 2 years later on a fair in Amsterdam, probably know it, ISC, and we just started talking like we normally do. And then after like 5 minutes, we say, well, we never actually met each other in real life, but since we had the video feed on each other, we knew each other that well that it didn't feel strange at all meeting each other and then just keeping the conversation going. So being able to see each other is one thing. The next thing is then also being able to see everything's been written on the whiteboard. So if you work in a environment where you normally use what I call an analog whiteboard, then it's a fairly easy way of including people by adding additional camera and then being able to use this remote presentation of the whiteboard. I mean, it doesn't really makes it digital, but it does make it possible for everybody to see what's in the meeting room, which is, in my case, the most important thing. But if you want to go and make it digital, then you would also be able to use a touchscreen together with your Teams rooms, and then being able to use a touchscreen, configure it as a touchscreen together with the Microsoft Teams rooms, and then you can use the embedded Microsoft Whiteboard in Teams, which also give a great experience. So I'm gonna take over on my presentation again. So back to my presentation. So simply by adding additional camera, there are not all cameras are supported, but there is a list from Microsoft which camera that is supported. So please be aware of that, and then choose this camera to be a content camera in the video feed or on the Teams rooms, and then you would be able to use it just like I did. Let me go to the next slide here. So one thing that you can also add if you want to have the full experience and the best experience from the Microsoft Teams rooms and the Surface Hub, then you will be able to set it up in coordinated meeting, which means that you would have the video feed and the audio feed for Microsoft Teams rooms, and then you will have the full experience of the Microsoft Whiteboard on the Surface Hub, being able to collaborate with each other, which means that you again inside your own organization would be able to write with each other and actually discuss what's been written on the whiteboard. So as of now, it's only inside the organization, but in the roadmap in September, we see that it opens up, so it will be possible to write with each other and collaborate with each other across organizations. So what we're actually doing is that we configure each device as how we would like them to work. So if you look at the Microsoft Teams rooms, we set it up for audio because we normally have the best audio, which we can make sure fits into that specific room. And we also turn on the video feed since it's normally also the best video camera on the Teams rooms. We don't want the audio to start on the Surface Hub, and we don't want the video to start each time on the Surface Hub as well, but you can actually turn on the ability for each user to turn on the camera during the call, which then would make sense if you kind of would like to have another perspective, or if you really work close to the Surface Hub, then you would be able to enable the camera on the Surface Hub and have the video feed from there as well. The first thing that we actually do is that we do trusted accounts with each other, which means that these accounts know that they work together. So basically you only need to invite the Teams rooms, and when you hit the join button on the Teams rooms, then the Surface Hub will automatically join. If you disconnect, both systems will disconnect. And also if you use the proximity join, as I showed you earlier about using your phone or your PC to actually connect to the room, then also both systems will start at the same time and disconnect as well. So a lot of features which we've seen different use scenarios for. We have seen it with 2 Surface Hub, but we definitely also seen it with 2 Teams rooms in the same room, if you would like to have a view of the speaker and the audience at the same time. Of course, you could also use the Microsoft the Microsoft Surface Hub as a standalone solution, which means that you can actually take the Surface Hub on this card and being able to roll it around. If you add the battery from APC, then you can actually disconnect it from the power outlet and move it around and have about 2 hours of usage on the Surface Hub, no matter where you are. So it's a great use case scenario where you can actually move the Surface Hub out to a stand-up meeting of being able to collaborate not only in the meeting room, but also in the open office environment or at a stand-up meeting. Another thing that we see is that we need to think about the whole meeting experience in Microsoft Teams. So it's not only about equipping the meeting rooms with the best video and audio, but it's definitely also about thinking how can we enhance the audio and video quality when you're sitting from home. So please make sure to use Teams certified devices, because they are certified to work with Microsoft Teams, and they do such a better experience for the whole meeting, instead of just somebody sitting talking down in an open PC in an open space environment. So I just want to add a few slides from a new document that Microsoft released a couple of weeks ago. So I'm going to share a QR code as well to where you can get the information from, and we're going to share the information afterwards as well. But if you want to go and dig into it right away, you can use the QR code that I'm going to show you just in a few seconds. So, I mean, the Teams rooms is definitely in the sweet spot between AV and IT. And some of you come from an IT background and someone come from a AV background. So we need to know a little bit about each things. So from an AV perspective, one of the things that we work with a lot is, of course, the video feed. We look at the camera about how wide is the field of view. So how much does the content or the camera actually capture in the meeting room? And if you sit really close to the screen, then it would make a great experience if you have a camera with a really wide field of view. So there is cameras out there that actually have 120 degrees or even 180 degrees, which will then be able to capture the people sitting really close to the screen. But if you're in a larger meeting rooms, then you should definitely look at a camera with a smaller field of view. So between 70 and 90 is most of the cameras that is in that environment. Another thing that we tend to see is if they have a smaller field of view, then they also tend to be able to have a larger zoom ratio, which means that they can then zoom in all the way back. Personally, I would always like to see all the people in the meeting room, but there is some cases if there is a presenter that is doing like a long chunk, then it would be possible to actually zoom into that person. Another thing that we see with a lot of the cameras right now is that they have this auto framing, which means that everybody in the meeting room will be framed. So if there's only people down here, then the camera will frame into these people. And if some people would leave the room and only be sitting on this side, then the camera would actually go and do the framing over here. So it seems like that we don't need the remotes that much anymore in the meeting room, since that we're now able to have the auto framing directly in the systems, which also again makes an even better user experience. Microphone placements, I would always look at the requirements and certification for Microsoft Teams, because that are the most strict certifications. So you need to think about the pickup range for each microphone. A lot of the microphones have a pickup range about 2.5 meters, 2.3 meters, as in this case, which means that you can add 2 microphones in this meeting room and then the table will be covered. But if you look at how we normally work in a meeting room, I tend to stay up, get up, walk around, maybe stay over here and do the presentation. I might also, if I'm sitting down, lean back, and then I would not get the best experience of the pickup range of the microphone. So you need to think about that. Not only people sitting at the table, but also are they walking around in the meeting room. So you make sure that you get the best experience from all the remote participants. You could also have like a video bar or audio bar, a sound bar that have a microphone embedded. and then they would be able to pick up some, and then you can add additional microphones. But please be aware of that. Audio is one of the most important things in the meeting room, because we don't want to sit and look at the people if they don't have great audio. And it also one of the things where we tend to be really tired if we don't get a good audio. I mean, we can shut down our eyes or close our eyes, but we can't really close our ears. We need to make sure that we get the best audio out there. If you look at the larger meeting rooms, then there is a great site from Microsoft called aka.ms/Teams devices, and there's all the certified devices for Microsoft Teams, and then you would be able to build quite large meeting rooms with Microsoft Teams rooms. The audio, one of the things that I really try to focus is having the audio from the place where I see the speaker or the presenter. So here I know that we are able to add speakerphones to the table, and then we would have the audio from the table near the microphones. But I much rather like to have the audio from the screen, because then it feels more natural for me, which then also means that I'm more relaxed when I have the audio from the place where I see the presenter. All of these information and a lot more is in this document, rooms.microsoft.com, and I also added the QR code so you can take your phone and point your camera at it right now, and then you would be pushed to rooms.microsoft.com, and this presentation or some of the slides that I've used right here is actually the top, what's it called, the top link in this page, where you can go to this PDF and have all this kind of information. So moving forward, what could be your next step as a partner? If you want to work with us even closer with Take Data Maverick, we have recently started a new partner program together with Microsoft. So it's not a Microsoft partner program, it's a Take Data Maverick program, but it's supported by Microsoft. And in this case, what we actually want to learn you is to kind of bake the whole cake. I mean, a lot of people is probably asking you for a USB camera because we would like to do video conference. We need to get something that so people can see us from the meeting room. But instead of just selling the things that people is asking for, we would like to learn you to get the whole cake instead. So make sure that you tell them about the Microsoft Teams rooms, you tell them about the option of having a dual screen session or dual screen solution where you have full video feed on one screen and the presentation on the other screen if they use presentations a lot. Also the mounting, the content camera, all the licensing. And also if you don't have your team yourself, we are able to support you with deployment and adoption for all your meeting rooms. And that's actually what we are focusing on, is to make sure that we have a good experience from the meeting or for the end customer. And if you're just equipping them with hardware, they need to know all this stuff out here. And it's, to be honest, it's not just a PC. You need to really be aware of how you deploy these systems. So if you don't have the technical skills or the end customers don't have, please reach out to us, and then we would be able to support you in the deployment and adoption as well. So this partner program is actually already started. So we did start it this Monday. So some of these sessions are already made this week, but we will have one more session today and tomorrow. And then, of course, this is just a program that we just started, so it's definitely going to be a program that we going to extend. And then we would also be able to invite you into our internal team and being able to have, so if you have any questions, then feel free to ask them in there. And then we are like, I guess, 140 people in Take Data Maverick working with Microsoft Teams, and then we will be able to support you and answer the questions in there. So if you haven't done already, please feel free to take this QR code or use the link that I will send after this meeting and sign up for a partner program. Able to get a lot of training from us and some of our partners, Microsoft, of course, Lenovo and Logitech as well. And then also be invited to our Teams and channel, being able to get the information from there. So this was my last slide. I hope there is a lot of questions in the Q&A session. Otherwise, please feel free to answer them right now and then or ask them right now, and then hopefully we will be able to answer them. It tends to see that there haven't been any questions yet, but maybe I could give a question then, because there's so many things coming out right now, so I'm gonna skip my presentation and ask Robert some hard questions. No, no, I mean, some of the things that a lot of the resellers is asking about right now is, where is Microsoft going? We have had Microsoft Teams rooms on Windows. Now we see Microsoft Teams rooms on Android. So the questions for a lot of our partners right now is, will Microsoft Teams rooms on Windows go away? Or how is Microsoft seeing that?
Great question, and no, of course not. We have added Teams rooms on Android as like the second strategy, underlying the full strategy of talking about Teams rooms. So I would say that when we launched it, was it like 2 years ago, as collaboration bars? That was the first iteration of these Android-based solutions. It was very much of a one in all or all-in-one device that you used for smaller room settings like focus rooms or small rooms. And then I would say it had evolved during that time. So from being perhaps a specific solution for smaller room settings, now it's even or alike. It's as much as important, I would say, as the Windows-based solutions. It's more of a strategy play for the customer to choose if we would like to standardize on Android devices and manage them from that perspective, or if we would like to standardize on Windows devices and have that management of a Windows PC instead in our meeting rooms. So I would say it's more like a strategy of what type of device that you would like to have in your IT environment. And then feature-wise, we are really working hard to bring the feature parity between the systems. So in that sense, Windows has been out there for a longer time. It have evolved during that time, so we have a lot of interaction, so we have a large ecosystem around the Windows-based solutions. Android, not that long, which means that we are working on how to close that gap in that sense and have a more like a feature parity. Then, of course, it is differences between Android as a platform solution and Windows as a platform solution. So you might not be able to do exactly the same things, but we will really strive to have a feature parity, which means that I, as a customer, more have to think about strategy of what type of device I would like to have in my environment than if it's doable for a small room, large room, what type of room. I think that is the strategy. So hopefully saying a lot of words, but coming to it is here to stay. We have 2 tracks, Windows and Android. The overall message is that it's Teams rooms, which means that then it's 2 flavors of it. And from a feature perspective, will be as close as possible.
Yeah. And I think it's a great thing that you actually said this thing about that it came from the collab bar, because when you look at the features from the collab bar and moving into Microsoft Teams rooms on Android, there's such a huge difference. I mean, so much better audio quality, so much better video quality, being able to use the Teams rooms on Android on a dual display. I'm gonna lift this one up. This one is the Rally Bar Mini. Haven't reached our partners yet, but this is a pre-production model that I'm testing on. And also the things about that, it's not only about having like the huddle rooms with the Android devices, because you are actually able to add additional microphones to the collab bars, which means that we can then support an even bigger room than we normally could with the collab bar. So I mean, Logitech is one of those that we work a lot with, that is having the Android-based version. There are others having an Android-based version as well. We know Karlsson is one of them, which we are onboarding actually officially today. So these are one of the vendors that we have been working with in the background for quite a while, and now we are onboarding them as a full partner with Tech Data, of course, also with Microsoft Teams rooms. But that's one of the things that we see, that we will then have options of actually being able to deliver the Teams panel, all the great stuff about Karlsson, and they will also come into the market with an Android-based version. There are still some that use another or alternative, so it's really up to the different users and basically end customers on which platform they want to use. And I mean, they can use Windows and Android at the same time. I just have the recently announced soundbar from Lenovo here, and they have a slightly different approach where they actually have a separate camera, but that could be mounted on top here. But this is not a Teams rooms on Android. This needs to be attached to a Teams rooms. So it could be the Think Smart Hub. So it's basically up to the end customers on which platform that they want to work on. And as I remember, no, I put it as a question instead. Are both Android and Windows supported in Teams Admin Center? So can they actually be monitored or managed from that platform?
Yes, of course. And Teams Admin Center is really the place to go to take care of your devices, room devices, personal devices like the Think Smart View, for instance, from Lenovo, the Teams. Exactly. You got it all, Lars. Yeah, that is a category actually of Teams displays where you bring your Teams client in a hardware setting where you have good audio, good video, and then I could use it for having my meetings on, or I can use it for having a very good overview of what's happening in Teams as well with my chats and my Teams channels and such. So that's a very good way to also to decouple the PC from having meetings on that one, so that you can continue to work on it. So the Teams display, for instance, Teams phones as a category, all of these different device categories are lit up in Teams Admin Center. And then you can see them. You can see the health of devices. If you have any issues with it, you can go back and to look at that specific call or meeting where you might have had an issue to see why, and then of course take actions to it. And then for the room specifics, you also have the availability to work with settings, and for a Windows device, for instance, you can really mirror the settings that you have on the console on the table, and do the same from a Teams admin perspective. So yes, Teams Admin Center is the place to go. If you're a partner that works with your customers, you can also have a specific role, which is called the Teams device role. And that makes you an admin in a customer tenant, but only for the devices, which means that you can care for your customers as well.
That's really nice. I mean, that's one of the things that we tend to see right now, is that a lot of the partners is trying to wrap everything around how to create a good business out of it. And it's in my case, one thing is to create a good business out of it. Another thing in my head is actually make sure that we give the customers a good experience. And it's maybe if you work with it every day, it's basic knowledge, but it's definitely not basic knowledge for everybody, and especially not the companies that don't have an IT department, which is used to work in the IT infrastructures as you need to do the PowerShell scripting, all of that kind of stuff. So that is also one of the things that I see on the licensing model, is that there is this difference between the license or the standard license and the premium license. So could you elaborate a little bit about what you will actually get if you or the customers will buy the premium license?
Yeah, sure. Good question as well. If we start off saying that a room should be licensed by a room license, it should not be licensed by a business license or an E1, E3, or A if you're in education. It should be used or licensed by a room license. They come in two flavors. It's the Teams Room Standard and it's the Teams Rooms Premium. Both have the full extent of features that you need to light up this room from a Teams and Skype perspective, having audio conferencing, doing telephony with phone system, and also manage it through Intune and Endpoint Manager. So all of that are in the both type of licenses. What we then add with the premium license is that you have, of course, the same thing. The room will also be lit up as well in Teams Admin Center, so that's no difference. But we add the capability that we also can enroll this room into what we call the premium service. So the Teams Rooms Premium service, that's 24 hours around the clock, around the globe service with actual people and AI serving our customers. We have like thousands, I would say more, or around at least 20,000 different rooms enrolled to the service in all types of combination as well, because you can have like a Lenovo combination or Logic combination, and then you can also mix and match, which means that customers might have very different settings in that room with different combinations of vendors and solutions. We have them all, as we have so many customers in this service. The AI part of it is that we get a lot of telemetry. So we see the rooms. We see, for instance, when we update something in the software, if that goes a bit wrong somewhere with a certain content of devices or device types or manufacturers or what have you, we can see that, and we can also mitigate it quite soon because we have so many devices in the service. So even perhaps before you experience it in your room in another time zone, we might have had that issue from several customers. We have made some changes and perhaps paused the update or made a mitigation of it. So it's a full service solution where we are able to take care of the rooms for a customer. You can create and you have support issues. So if you would like to create a ticket, you do that. But there's also health and telemetry and insights that we also give back to the customer. So you really get a managed solution from Microsoft. It's also connected to partners. So many of our specific partners could also be a part of the premium service working on behalf of the customer. So if I want perhaps my local partner to be a part of it, they could work on behalf of that customer and have the insight to the portal and do the things that the customer would like to do, but don't have the capacity perhaps or the competence. So much more like also bringing the partner ecosystem into this.
Great. Thanks, Robert. I mean, even though we are close to the hour, there is questions popping up now that I'm trying to get around. So Jesper is asking, what is the largest room that you have set up with the camera bar? I mean, the largest room that I've set up is my home office, but if you look at it from the specification, if you look at it, if it's the Rally Bar or Rally Bar Mini that I had or showed just before, the pickup range on the microphones embedded in this one is 4.5 meters. And then on the Rally Bar Mini, you will be able to add additional 2 microphones, which have a 2.5 pickup range. So I mean, just around 8 meter, I guess, would be benefit of being possible to use with the Rally Bar Mini. On the Rally Bar, you are able to connect 3, so that will give us an additional few meters. The microphones in the Rally Bar Minis is actually the same. So 6 line array MEMS microphones in both the Rally Bar Mini and the Rally Bar. So that's the same microphones. And then also there is a new feature in the Rally Bar Mini where you can actually disable the internal microphones if you want to have even more boost on the speakers. So if you added ceiling microphones or additional microphones, then you can actually use this speaker boost. So that was Jesper, and then Anders is asking, what do you believe is the pros from the new Rally Bar versus the rather old but great Polystudio USB bar? Rally Bar is 4 times more expensive. Well, it's in my opinion, it's two different products. I mean, the Poly Studio is a great device. Unfortunately, we don't have Poly in our portfolio, but I know it rather well. It's a great device, but it's a USB device only. So you need to add a Teams room to get the experience of being able to walk into a meeting room and hit a button and join it. So that's one of the things. And another thing that is on the Rally Bar and Rally Bar Mini is this Android. So I know that's not officially launched with Teams yet, but mine is running Teams. So I have a beta version on it and it's running really nice. So it's going to be a part of the Microsoft Teams on Android. And it will be able to run dual screen. It does have an HDMI ingest, and you can have it together with the tab panel from a Logitech, or you can use the remote that I have somewhere here, or you can use it together with a touchscreen. So, and by adding a touchscreen, then you would be able to join the button directly on the screen, and you will be able to launch the whiteboard if you're in a personal mode. So that's also another feature that is on the Android devices. That there is this personal mode where you can actually sign in with your personal account and then be able to launch the whiteboard and then start inking when you are in a call. Yeah, so not really two compatible products because it is two different sides of it would probably be more sense to compare it with the Meetup from Logitech if it's in Logitech area. Another question from Anders is, in the creative meeting room left, oh, that's a while since you wrote that, the leftmost on your one of your previous slide where there is a touchscreen, what would be the role of the Teams Rooms equipment? I guess that would be in the slide where I had the Surface Hub and the Teams Rooms in the same meeting. So I think I'm just gonna find it and share it. Let me take video feed down here and then put this one up here. So in this case, then you would have the Teams Rooms being able to work with the camera and the audio. Of course, it should have been like a small touch panel down here to join the button or to join the call. And then the Surface Hub will be like the secondary screen with the content or the Microsoft Whiteboard. But actually, no matter where you join the meeting from, it will join both devices because these are put together in trusted accounts. So they would always work with each other, which is great if they are in the same meeting room, but probably not really great if somebody takes the Surface Hub and run out of the meeting room, then the Surface Hub will still call, even though they're not in the same room. So be aware of that. So if you configure it, it should be it should be a solution that is used to work in the same meeting room. So with 5 minutes past the hours, and I'm sorry about that, I think we're gonna end the live event. So thanks a lot, Robert, for joining us on this live event and talking about the difference between Microsoft Teams Rooms versus bring your own device. There is actually a huge difference that we need to be aware of. So thanks for joining, Robert. And also thanks a lot to Thomas Eriksson, who did the producing of this live event. So this is the real case scenario where we actually sit in Sweden and then in Denmark, and we are still being able to work with each other really close and being able to do this live event together with you. So thanks a lot, everyone, for joining. I'm going to send the presentation out afterwards together with a link to the recording and also a link to rooms.microsoft.com so you can get even more information. If you got any questions that we haven't answered already, please feel free to reach out to us. So thanks a lot for joining.